So I'd like to start with an acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the territory in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk and the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We would also like to recognize the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Inutukavut and the Innu of Nitassinan and their ancestors as the original people of Labrador. We strive for respectful relationships with all the peoples of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honor this beautiful land together. So welcome everybody. I'm Mike Morrow. I'm the president of the St. John's Centre, and I think we've got one newish Scott online. So hello, Scott. Do you want to unmute and say hello?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great.
So welcome, and hope you enjoy the meeting, and we'll look forward to meeting you in person sometime, I hope.
Indeed.
Okay, so let's see. I need to get going. There we are. Okay. So I've got a few announcements. Some of you may have seen probably it was on Facebook that Gary was celebrating 34 years in the planetarium. So here's a picture of Gary. Is that a recent picture?
Yeah.
Okay. Picture of Gary in the planetarium. So congratulations at the Marine Institute. And that's one of our member benefits is every once in a while when we aren't having a blizzard, we can have a planetarium night that Gary hosts. Before our next meeting, so Thursday, March 14th, Anna O'Grady, Dr. Anna O'Grady, is going to be giving the Elizabeth R. Laird Public Lecture. So that's an endowed lecture at Memorial, but she's going to be giving it at the Johnson Geo Center at 7 o'clock. It's the same title as the talk that she gave us in December, but I suspect she's done lots of stuff between December and now. So it's probably still worth turning out to have a look. And I suspect that being an endowed lecture, there's also snacks after. So that's an important consideration. And our next meeting is going to be March 20th. And Gary is going on a trip. I guess it's not a secret where you're going, right?
No.
He's going to Australia. And so he's going to give us a little report on all the stuff he sees. And he's taking his Sea-Star telescope with him. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And it'll be our, we'll have a little session if people still have any unanswered questions about the eclipse. We can have a little sort of informal question and answer session on the eclipse. So I don't think we've got anybody visiting that's not a member, but I'll just remind you that what's that? Oh, Scott's not a member. Okay. So Scott, this is for you. So the benefits of membership are a supportive community, to help you learn about astronomy. When you become a member, you can join the chat group, and that's really quite an asset. People share their observations and sort of alerts for what to look at. When you're a member, you can contact Randy and join. We have publications, the Journal and the Observer's Handbook. We have low-cost equipment rentals. Chris takes care of that, so like $10 for a telescope or something like that for until somebody else wants it, I guess. And so there is a way to join online at RASC. There's a weekly newsletter and a monthly bulletin. The bulletin, I think you get automatically. The newsletter, I think you have to sign up for. And so with that, I think we can get to our presentation by Nikolay. So our there's a long bio here, but Nikolay's the team lead of weather operations at WSP. overseeing a large group of meteorologists. He's been an operational meteorologist for 12 years, so he knows a lot about weather and microclimate, and that's pertinent to the topic of today's talk, which is what to expect in April for our solar eclipse. He still does his leadership, but also doing some forecasting. He wanted to study astronomy, but ended up studying meteorology instead, not that far apart. And so I'll hand it over to Nikolay, and I'll lower my talk and try and bring up Nikolay's. Okay, so if you keep the mouse over here, I think you can just use the little wheel.
Just use that instead of the pointer.
Well, yeah, and the people online, of course, can't see the pointer, so that's probably a good thing to do.
Okay.
And you can, to get to your website, you probably just have to lower that. You can lower that anyways. And there's your stuff there. And I'll minimize this. So you'll probably want, when you're ready for this, to drag it over to that screen.
Okay.
You know how to work with lots of screens.
A little bit.
Oh, I know you do.
All right. Can everyone see me and hear me? Okay. How's that?
Thanks for pointing that out.
I'm wearing tall shoes.
Yeah, that's the only difference in shoes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this lecture tonight. I appreciate you joining, particularly those of you who opted to be here on this perfectly clear night. I can appreciate that you could be having a lot of fun right now with your telescope, but hopefully you won't be disappointed by tonight's lecture. So thank you for joining. My name is Nikolay, like Mike said, and I'm going to be talking to you about the weather and climate as it pertains to the upcoming total solar eclipse, specifically for Newfoundland. So I'm very excited about this topic because it combines the two disciplines, the one that I wanted to study and the one that I ended up studying. And so I've always enjoyed combining the two. And I figured it's been a while since I've talked in front of this group, and I've kind of been missing it. So I offered to do this, and Mike graciously accepted. So thank you, Mike, for that.
Thank you.
So let's get started. So this is the outline for today's lecture. There's three main sections. The first one is a cloud climatology study that I did. It's very informal. Don't think that this is anything grand, but it's certainly very interesting. The second one is I'll go over the possible types of weather that we might get on April 8th. So possible weather scenarios. And finally, very briefly, I will offer some forecast tools that you might find useful for your planning. Okay, so let's get started with the first one. So the cloud climatology study for April 8th. So this is what I did. The goal of this is to objectively analyze eclipse visibility in the past 20 years for 3 locations in Newfoundland, and I picked Bonavista, Gander, and Codroy. I picked Bonavista because it's right on the center line, and it is fairly close to St. John's. I picked Gander because it is still in the path of totality, and that's where many of us will be going. And I picked Codroy because it's kind of a more separated from those two, but it's also right on the path of, like, right on the center line. So I can, of course, appreciate that there's many other locations that you might be curious about, like the Bay d'Espoir Highway, like Terra Nova. But for simplicity, I'm going to focus on those three. And of course, I can perhaps answer questions on any other locations that you may be interested in. So my methodology is, first, I obtained high resolution visible satellite imagery from the MODIS GOES 16 satellite for April 8th over the past 20 years. So for those of you who may not be familiar, the MODIS satellite is a polar orbiter that has extremely high resolution imagery, some of the highest resolution weather observing satellite that exists. And it takes one picture per day over every spot on Earth, pretty much. And the pictures that it takes over Newfoundland are in the kind of early to mid-afternoon, which is fairly close to what we want. Maybe separated by 2 to 3 hours, but it's good enough for this purpose. And where MODIS doesn't exist because it's been operational for fairly recently, I've used GOES 16 before that, which is the kind of the more generic weather satellite. For reference, MODIS has a resolution of 200 meters, so it's excellent. You can see breaks in the clouds. You can make pretty good assertions about what the cloud situation was in any given spot in Newfoundland. And I only looked at April 8th, okay? And that's for the past 20 years. So what I then did was I visually noted first the cloud type and second the cloud cover, okay? So cloud types, there's many, but the ones that you may know are stratus, which are the low thick clouds, the alto clouds, which are the middle clouds, and the cirrus clouds, which are the high, thin, transparent, icy clouds. And then cloud cover is how much of the sky is covered by cloud, okay? I grouped cloud type into 3 categories: low, medium, or high. And that's important because it has implications for eclipse visibility. And then I grouped cloud cover into 3 categories. And those are somewhat arbitrary, but for simplicity, they are clear when the sky has 0 to 30% cloud, partly cloudy when it has 30 to 80% cloud, and cloudy when it's 80 to 100%. Okay, that's the methodology. The results, then I grouped into 3 categories. Category number 1, eclipse not visible. So that's the no category. And that means that it was cloudy with either medium or low clouds, okay? Cloudy with medium or low cloud. Not high though, because if it's cloudy with high clouds, the sun is visible in most cases. Eclipse may be visible. That's the maybe category. Those were the partly cloudy with medium or low clouds. And again, not the high clouds, because the high clouds are pretty transparent. And finally, eclipse visible, that's the yes category. So it was either clear or partly cloudy with high cloud or cloudy with high cloud, because all of these categories generally mean that the eclipse is visible. Okay, that's generally it. Now, a couple of disclaimers. Disclaimer number 1, this study does not have short-term weather predictive power for the April 8th eclipse and is merely for informational purposes. Sorry to disappoint. Disclaimer number 2, I am not responsible if you pick your location based on this information and end up being clouded out. Disclaimer number 3, if indeed you get clouded out, feel upset and want to feel better, feel free to blame me. I'm used to it. You can do it. So that's kind of the background of the study. So let's get to the kind of the data and then the results. So I will show you the satellite picture from every year for the past 20 years for April 8th, so that you have an understanding of what we're dealing with. A couple of notes before we get started. There's a lot of white in these pictures, and it's important to tell what's what. So first of all, there's white, like down here, that's clouds. There's white, like up here on the northern peninsula, that's snow on the ground. There's white in the ocean, that's very swirly, that's sea ice. So it is important to kind of be able to tell what's what. I'm pretty well trained on telling these things apart. I can generally tell what cloud type we're looking at based on the structure of it, based on the color of the cloud, because you know, they have different colors, different transparencies. So so starting with 2004, and here I'll be noting kind of a summary of what the year was like. So in 2004, I did note that it was clear in Cod Roy, which is right here on the westernmost tip. It's the westernmost point in Newfoundland, so it's easy to tell. It's right here, and all this white is snow on the ground. That's not cloud. So it was perfectly clear. Great year. Not so great in Gander or Bonavista. Okay. Any questions so far?
Just had a question, just a quick question about where the isthmus is. You can see the ocean there.
Oh yeah,
Would it have been clear right there?
yeah. The isthmus is typically pretty bad, but not here. Here it's actually indeed, you're right. There is clearing over the isthmus. 2005, terrible year. All this white is cloud. Everything is cloud. You can't see the snow on the ground. You can't see anything. And what that means is that it was a big winter storm. So that's not what we want. 2006. Big winter storm. 2007. Also a lot of cloud, but I did note that there was small hope for Gander, which is right here, and you can see those breaks in the clouds. I would say that's, you know, some possibility. Completely overcast in Cod Roy, completely overcast in Bonavista. 2008 is pretty terrible. I don't see any hope for any of those locations. And again, this is just a snapshot at maybe like 2 hours before the eclipse time. Maybe at eclipse time it's different, but I don't have that data, so I'm gonna use this as a proxy. So
And to see, like, I just wanted to point out on the isthmus again, where Centra is that? No, it's not. Is that not Centra? But it's Centra Bay there.
yeah,
It's actually a clear little band right there.
yeah, Placentia Bay is good. You'll see on a lot of those pictures, actually, southern Newfoundland is consistently more clear than other areas, and the reason why that is because you're not in fog season yet. You're just before fog season, so you're not plagued by all the constant stratus clouds that are there in, you know, late spring and throughout the summer, which is good news for those of you who might be adventurous enough to try the Bay d'Espoir Highway, which I kind of recommend, and you'll see why. 2009, we have some hope for Cod Roy right here. You can see lots of clear spots, and maybe Gander. Bonavista, no, thick cloud. 2010, Bonavista for the win. Pretty clear. Well, let's say partly cloudy across the Bonavista Peninsula, and pretty cloudy everywhere else. So this is a rare example where Bonavista actually wins. I guess St. John's is good too, but 99% totality, or 99% is not totality. 2011, not an impossible year, but it would be a huge challenge everywhere. That's because you see those kind of broken clouds everywhere. So you got to be really lucky to get a break in the clouds, which is not impossible. But you got to be lucky. Whoops. 2012, I noted a small chance in Codroy due to these wavy clouds that are mostly standing waves off the west coast. So if the sun happens to be between those waves of clouds, you know, you could be lucky. Nothing in Bonavista or Gander. 2013, I have a small chance, tiny chance in Bonavista due to a little bit of clearing just here. Everywhere else, thick cloud. 2014 is the best year that I could find, hands down. So all of this white that you see here is either snow or frozen lakes and rivers. So it is perfectly clear everywhere on the island except for this, I think that's mid to high cloud in the southwest. But even then you can kind of see the snow on the ground through this cloud. So I think this is an example where all locations would have seen the totality. But Gander and Bonavista, zero cloud. Perfect. 2015 would have been a very challenging year everywhere. Another one where you have breaks here and there, but they're small and you got to be really lucky. 2016 is the second best year. We have perfectly clear skies in Bonavista and partly cloudy in Gander.
And not much snow.
No. So this is actually a great scenario if that happens. We have a lot of snow that needs to melt at this point. 2017, West Coast, Best Coast. Obviously, there's cloud on the West Coast, but it is the only location where the eclipse would have been visible. It's on the West Coast. And not necessarily from Codroy, but also kind of along the highway here, Stephenville, maybe, Corner Brook. 2018, we have a big winter storm. Unlike the other two that I showed you, this one hasn't fully overspread the island. So you do see some transparency in the cloud here in the north. You can see the sea ice under the high cloud. This is our only hope if there's an impending winter storm, is for it to not have quite arrived and for us to be under the outer high cloud through which we can see the sun. So if you're somewhere here on the north coast, you would definitely see the sun through that high cloud. Not so much down here. Down here is probably heavy rain or snow. 2019, small chance in Gander, again due to small breaks in the clouds. Pretty clear down here though, on the south coast. 2020, small chance everywhere again. 2021 was perfectly clear in Codroy, right here, not a cloud in the sky. However, mostly cloudy, if not overcast, in Gander and Bonavista. 2022, 2 years ago, we have clouds everywhere except perhaps in Codroy, where the clouds seem to be more like a coastal stratus cloud. So perhaps Codroy is a maybe here. And then 2023, which on this date, Gary tells me that he was in Terra Nova, which is right here, and he told me there were some partial clearing visible, and this satellite imagery confirms that there were some gaps in the clouds. However, they were not very widespread, and so you'd have to be pretty lucky, because those are low clouds. If you're not in the holes, you don't see the sun, you know. But if you're in the holes, you see the sun perfectly. So that's the thing with low clouds. It's yes or no. Okay, so that's that. So what are the results of all this? So this is a summary of yes, no, or maybe for each location for each year. I will provide more detail, but this is kind of the data that I came up with. And this is an even more condensed summary down here. So for Cod Roy, we have 4 yeses, which is double that of Gander and more that of Bonavista. We have 7 maybes in Cod Roy, which is more than that of Gander and more than double that of Bonavista. And only 9 no's for Cod Roy, which is a lot less than that of Gander and Bonavista. So what does this tell you? What is the best location based on the last 20 years and based on one satellite picture on April 8th?
Go west, young man, go west.
Go west, where the skies are blue. So here are some fun statistics, again, based on this data and these results. The success rate, and I define that as yes or maybe. And the reason why I count maybe as a success is because in this day and age, we have good predictive power and we have mobility. So if you can predict where it's going to be clear and if you can move, then your maybe is a yes. Or it's more skewed towards a yes than it is more skewed towards a no. So this is an optimistic statistic where I'm counting both the yes and the maybe as success. So in that case, Cod Roy has a 55% chance of success. Gander 35%, Bonavista 30% chance of success. And you do see immediately that Cod Roy has double the chance of Bonavista, almost. We had 0 clear, or I should say perfectly clear years across Newfoundland. 2014 was the closest, where the southwest coast had that high cloud, which, depending on how you count that, you know, maybe that's a clear year. We had 4 years of thick cloud everywhere, where absolutely no chance of seeing it anywhere. We had 2 years of a double yes, and by double yes, I mean 2 cities of the ones that I looked at had a yes. We had 5 years where only the West Coast was a yes or a maybe. So 25% of the time, the eclipse would have been visible only on the West Coast. We had 7 years of at least 1 yes, so 33% of at least 1 yes, not bad. 16 years of at least 1 yes or maybe. This is an 80% chance of success if you are in the right place. And that's the most positive statistic I'm going to give you today. I think it's pretty positive. It means that if you can predict where the clearing will be, and if you can go there, based on the last 20 years, you have 80% chance of success, which is a dramatically more optimistic way of looking at it than, you know, looking at those continental cloud charts that clearly show Newfoundland as the absolute worst place for the eclipse, which it is climatologically. But if you do your homework and if you're mobile, you're actually not in a bad spot. And that's what I like to believe. I'm actually feeling pretty optimistic for this. I think the chance of nobody seeing this anywhere in Newfoundland is actually very small. So the reason for that is that the eclipse crosses both the west and the east coast. So our success rate is actually much higher than it would have been if it was only over one location. Imagine if it was only crossing the Avalon Peninsula. You have nowhere else to go. So not only is the Avalon bad weather, but it also is very small. So your options are limited. And those numbers would have been a lot smaller if that was the case. So those are the results of this study. So now I'm going to move on to the second part of this presentation. How are we doing on time? Okay, decent. Okay. So the possible weather scenarios for April 8th. So those are different kinds of weather setups that I have seen in my years of experience forecasting for Newfoundland for April, and also using the pictures that I just show you to kind of give you what's possible. So scenario number one is a winter storm. Okay, that is definitely a possibility, and it is the worst case scenario. We don't want that. But like I said, if the timing is right and we are ahead of it, we might just be under that high cloud. And typically the best place to be for that is Bonavista. Why? Because storms come from the southwest, and the last place that gets enveloped by that thicker cloud is the most eastern one, which is Bonavista. So if this happens, I will definitely be going to Bonavista. Scenario number two is we're in the wake of that winter storm with a very strong cold air push behind the storm. And basically what that means is that you have these sea effect clouds or onshore flurries that develop over the water and the unstable air behind the storm. Now, the thing is, those tend to kind of shut down in April because the water begins to warm up and the air is not as cold. So actually, April it is not a bad time to be in a coastal location. It's one of the few times of the year in Newfoundland where being along the coast is not a bad thing. Why? Because in the winter, for those of you who have lived on the West Coast, it's constantly flurries and snow squalls every single day. And those of you who have lived on the East Coast, in the summer, it's constant fog. So being close to the coast, you know, it's not necessarily a good thing unless you're like right in the middle between those two seasons, which April is. And that's actually why Bonavista's statistics are not that much worse than Gander's. If we were comparing the entire year, Bonavista would have been a lot worse than Gander, but here we're only talking April, okay? Nonetheless, if this scenario did happen, your best location is Gander because it's inland and it's because it's away from those kind of onshore flurries that you do see here on the West Coast, but also over Bonavista, kind of overspreading a wide area. Scenario number three, the best scenario. This is what we want. This is what we have today. And this is the picture from 2016, a high pressure ridge. Those are good. And they're good in April because they don't produce these coastal clouds that plague our skies for the rest of the year. As you can see, it is perfectly clear in all of these coastal locations, everywhere, really. There's just that high cloud that's not really associated with the high pressure ridge, but this is good. This is what we want. Yeah, can be clear anywhere if this happens. And then scenario number four is the mixed setup, which you have little troughs and ridges everywhere, little cloud systems, low clouds, mid clouds, high clouds, all over the place. There's a good side to this, there's a bad side to this. The bad side is that there is a lot of cloud everywhere. And it is picked. The good side is that the cloud is not everywhere, like it is with a winter storm where there's clouds everywhere. So there is still hope if this happened. For those scenarios, we do need to use the higher resolution models, which I will talk about, but the Canadian high resolution model cloud cover handles those situations the best. Okay, last, forecast tools. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I will show you quickly some useful places to look at. So there's kind of two parts to this. There's the planning of the week before the eclipse, and then there's the day of the eclipse. So you will be using different tools for those two things. So for the 1 to 7 days out, and I know that you're going to want to know like 2 weeks in advance and you're going to be looking at forecasts, but it's not going to do anything. Predicting cloud cover, you know, a few days out is a challenge, let alone more than a week. So if you want to look at it for fun, go for it, but the predictability is just not good. So two familiar sites to everyone in this group, or most people, are Spotwix and Windy. And I will just very quickly outline one thing that you can look on each of those two sites that will help you. So on Spotwix, the good thing that you want to look at is the cloud type GFS model, which is the American weather model. So I will show you what that looks like. So this is the Spotwix or spotwx.com website. When you go to it, you just click on your location or you type it here. And then you scroll down and you select your model. There's a bunch of models here. The one that has cloud type is the GFS, the others don't. So if you go to the GFS, whoops, and scroll down a little bit, here's the cloud type. So there's the low, middle, and high cloud. So you definitely want to consider this, because if something's telling you that it's going to be 100% cloud, but if that cloud is high, that's not a bad thing, okay? But if it's telling you 100% low cloud, that's bad. And you can look at all sorts of other fun things, such as this freezing rain that we're going to be getting tomorrow night. So that's that. Any questions about Spotwix and the cloud types? Okay. The second source is the Windy clouds. So Windy is a more spatial weather prediction tool. Now, both Windy and Spotwix show you raw model data that is meant to be interpreted only by meteorologists. So take everything that you see here with a grain of salt, because it may not be accurate, and there might be more to it than you assume. But the raw cloud cover data is shown here. You just have to click on clouds here on the right, and down here you select your model. I do have the ECMWF selected, which is the European model, and it's consistently one of the best models for many things. So this white here is your cloud. So that's good. However, if you click either on low clouds or on cloud base, you can see more information for the type of cloud. So cloud base, and down here is the legend, okay? Cloud base tells you how high the cloud is. The higher the cloud, the better, because it's more transparent. So that's another source to look at cloud type, but also to see it spatially and kind of visually. Again, Spotwix, the GFS model, windy.com, the ECMWF, clouds, and cloud base. Okay, that's two resources to use to predict about 7 days out, although not necessarily accurately that far out. I would say that depending on the weather setup, clouds can be decently well predicted, maybe 4 or 5 days out. And then it gets better closer to the event. But again, it varies with the kind of weather setup. Some setups are more predictable than others. So I can't give you a precise number of, when will this chart become, accurate, and when will it not be? It varies. You can, of course, reach out and ask me, and, I can provide that information based on what's actually happening. But right now, it's very hard to say. And now for the day of, the eclipse, April 8th, you actually want satellite imagery. You want to be able to see the clouds as they're moving. The good thing about it is that our eclipse is, well late into the afternoon. And so you have the opportunity to track clouds all day and to kind of see what they're doing, which is a huge plus that, compared to, waking up and seeing the eclipse first thing in the morning. And kind of like, you even have the opportunity to drive from, across the island. So lots of pluses for us. That's another one. So the satellite that I do like to use is the College of DuPage, or COD satellite. Right now I'm showing you the infrared satellite image of Newfoundland. I'm using infrared, which is this channel here, or this band here. If it was during the day, I would be using visible. But visible is not available at night because it's only the visible spectrum of light. However, on the day of the eclipse, we will be using visible because it's going to be during the daytime, and that's much better because visible actually has higher resolution, and you can see the clouds much better on visible. So this is what it looks like. You can see those high streaky clouds kind of passing through southeast Newfoundland. I could see them earlier in the sky. There was like a little bit of like thin high cloud in the distance. That was that, and they kind of seem to be dissipating. So it's actually a very clear night right now. The west coast does have a little bit of low cloud kind of overspreading the immediate coast, but other than that, very clear, beautiful night. So those are the tools that I wanted to mention. Obviously there's many more tools that I absolutely don't have the time to cover, but I think those will be the most useful ones for you. If anybody else has other tools that they want to share or ask me a question about, be happy to answer. If I know them. I think I know most of them, but you never know. So I showed you the cloud maps. I showed you the College of DuPage as your kind of second source. As your third source, I have listed Nikolay. I will be happy to answer questions if you reach out to me or email me. One thing that just occurred to me prior to this presentation that perhaps I could do is maybe on the talk list, or if the exec has better suggestions, I could start making a weather prediction, maybe starting 7 days out and then updating it every day.
That'd be a great idea.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I can't promise any accuracy. What I have to offer is 12 years of forecasting experience for Newfoundland, and humans are always better than something that's automated on an app, which brings me to point number 4: avoid non-local sources and apps. Okay, AccuWeather, the weather network, random phone apps, avoid. This will be a computer generated forecast in the case of like AccuWeather that completely does not understand the local microclimates of Newfoundland. You're not going to have someone sitting in Pennsylvania running a script and knowing the local microclimates of Newfoundland, which change in every single cove, literally, as you know. So I would not rely on that. If you want to use like local TV sources like NTV or CBC, their meteorologists are both very good. You're welcome to do that. But do avoid random apps or sources that are not local. So if you get a local source that is also a human being, that is where the highest accuracy is. And if you know them personally and they're willing to talk to you, That's the best of all worlds. So that's all I have. Thank you for your patience. Good luck. And I know that we got this. I'm pretty positive that we're gonna see it. So yeah, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's better news than I expected, so that's great to hear. So I'm sure Nikolay will answer some questions. Yeah.
There's a few questions on the chat.
Okay, you wanna-
So
Yeah, I didn't look at St. John's. My guess would be that it's very similar to Bonavista based on weather and climate in April for those two locations. So I had 35% chance of success for Bonavista.
you were mentioning about going down the Bay Spare Highway.
Yeah.
Any reason for that?
Yes. So the Beta Spare Highway is does not get either the onshore flurries that the West Coast could get, or the fog that the East Coast might get. But again, it is pretty early in the season. And you saw on a lot of those pictures, especially the more southern part of the Bay Spare Highway was consistently pretty clear. So that's my reasoning for that. It's a very kind of inland safe location.
We need to be cautious about that. At the last minute, sorry, you want to drive that Bay Spare in April.
Now you're going to stop now.
There's risks in every decision.
So could we just put a tracker in your car? Will the Canada Weather Office be doing anything special since it's a big event in Canada?
Will they be doing anything?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I imagine that there are some meteorologists that work there and post on Twitter regularly. I imagine that they will be quite involved, and it's probably a very good source because it's local, it's human, and it's in the path of totality. So I imagine there's going to be some good stuff coming from them.
I noticed that Jim has a question about whether what it's like at Hibernia.
So
'Cause I guess that means he's not gonna be on shore so he's not gonna see totality.
right. Hibernia, my prediction is never good there, unfortunately. Definitely lower than what I showed for Bonavista, probably significantly lower. Now I boo. I actually forecast for Hibernia every day, and consistently look at their weather pattern, and sometimes I do see clear skies, but it's a lot rarer than Newfoundland, and Newfoundland is already like here. So maybe there's always hope.
Any other questions? If not, let's thank Nikolay again. We've got a little Nikolay. That's not just what it says on the box, is my understanding, but thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
If you can't use it yourself, give it away.
Oh, 100%.
Except for the chocolate.
Okay, so let's see if I can get back to where we were. There we are. Okay, well, thank you again, Nikolay, and I'm gonna carry on with some member observations. I guess partly in keeping with the theme, you'll notice that these are mostly clustered around over the last month. This is mostly clustered around just a couple of clear days in the last month, but when it was clear, there was lots of activity, and we also had some people going back and reprocessing some data that ended up being quite interesting. So we had a late contribution from Gary today. That's you, right? got his sea star out to look at the sun and practice, and I got this off of Facebook, and boy, the sea star, just every time you see stuff, it's very impressive. That's a lovely shot of not many sunspots, but pretty nice ones that are there, just really nice. And so there are lots of shots of the moon and some of the planets. So John Nugent did this one of the moon and Jupiter around January 20th. And John and Andrea Peddle did this one again, the moon the same night, moon and Jupiter. They're in the same position with a nice halo there. I actually used that in a talk with Cubs last week. Robert did a shot of the moon it looks a little more grainy on the screen here, but a nice shot of the moon. I did a shot, so that was January 31st. February 16th, actually, I did a shot of the moon, and Robert did, and you can't quite see it. I'm gonna point something out on Robert's picture. If you look right there in my picture, you can't really see it on the screen there. Okay. There's the lunar X there, but it's pretty hard to see. But if you look at Robert's shot, so this one was at 7:30. So a few hours later, there's the lunar X, and it's very visible. And he also did a shot. It was actually a few seconds earlier than this, much higher gamma. So there's the lunar X. So that's basically some ridges that are just on the terminator, just sort of the sun is just catching the tops of a crater and something. And there's also what's called the lunar V and the lunar L there. So they're just some features that show up at the quarter moon. And you can see the difference between the two pictures. It's really within maybe a couple hours. The Pedals did a lovely shot of the Big Dipper, which I also used in the talk for Cubs. And then there were lots of pictures of Jupiter. So I took a picture January 22nd, and there's the great red spot. And I did two that were separated by an hour and a little bit. And you can see the red spots moved a bit. And this is Io, Ganymede, and Europa, and especially Ganymede, you can see has moved a bit. Chris did a very interesting picture using infrared. So it's yeah, a little bit nicer resolution up on the screen than it is down here, which is funny. Again, Io and Europa, and so these were January 22nd, January 24th. This is January 31st. You can see the great red spot. So does that mean it's hotter than the rest of?
Yeah.
So the dark here are cooler bands, and the great red spot, which is a storm, is hotter. And Chris has done several of these projects where he's looked at Uranus and blocked out the disk of the planet. And sometimes there's other things around like a star, but these are the moons of Uranus, and he's matched it up. So if I look at this, let's see what's what here.
Easier to see.
That Titania there, and Oberon, and Ariel down there, right?
It should be labeled at the bottom.
Yeah, but I don't think people can see those very well. So I was trying to read the bottom and look at the top. And Chris has been trying to see the rings, but not there yet.
No.
Okay, that's pretty ambitious.
I'll let you know when I figure that out.
Okay, and so then I'll go through some of the deep sky observations that people have made. Jim Johnson reprocessed the Iris Nebula, so this is for us really more of a summer object. So it's down in here. So here's Cygnus, that's the tail of Cygnus. So it's near Cepheus. It's a reflection nebula, about 1,300 light years away. So this is his original picture, and he's been refining his work. Do you want to say, are you there, Jim? Do you want to say a little bit about what you're doing on these things with PixInsight?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Seeing as the weather's been horrible and I'm stuck at work now, in the evenings I've been just playing around with some of the new to me, I guess, tools that are available within PixInsight to do some processing of some of my older images. And it's turning out relatively or surprisingly well, actually. This picture of the iris was taken back in 2020, I believe, when we were camping in Square Pond over the summer. So it was in a fairly dark sky.
So what are you doing? You're making the stars smaller and
There's a couple of different tools that are available for purchase that you can use within PixInsight. One is called a Blur Exterminator, which kind of does a convolution of the images and makes the stars sharper and rounder where they need to be. There's another one, it's called Noise Exterminator, which does a really good job at eliminating a lot of the background noise. And then there's a third one, which there's already a similar tool in PixInsight, but the third one is a star exterminator. So it removes the stars from your image, and basically it gives you two images, one with stars and one without stars. So you can process your nebulosity and that's separate from your stars and then add them back together after.
okay, well, pretty nice. Okay, thanks a lot. And so another thing that happened last month was a supernova was reported by Koichi Itagaki, who also discovered one of the previous supernovas, the one that was in M101 that we were looking at a little while ago. And it's in, it's in a galaxy that's down in here. And so we have a couple images of that. Jim Johnson did this one. So there's the supernova. You can see the little crosshairs there in that galaxy. You can see how much light's coming from essentially one, that this is a type 1a supernova. So that's a white dwarf, which is the end of a star that's less than 8 solar masses that has then accreted more mass until the mass of the white dwarf exceeds 1.4-ish times the mass of the sun, which is called the Chandrasekhar limit. At that point, the quantum kind of stuff magic that's keeping it from collapsing isn't strong enough, and it collapses down and explodes. So that's a type 1a supernova, and there's a lot of energy released there. So that in principle can be used to measure the distance to very distant galaxies, type 1a supernovas. And Chris Stevenson also caught that one. So there it is again. You can see how much light's coming from one star compared to certainly millions of stars in that core. It's kind of intimidating.
There were more frames, but the guider wasn't working that night. It was a bright night.
Yeah.
Cold, and I went to the data, and there were only about 8 good frames because it was just drifting on the bottom, and I just
Yeah.
showed a single frame.
Still pretty impressive. Very nice. We had some shots, I think it's from Jim Johnson, of M81 and M82, and I always find them by going to the Big Dipper and starting down here, going diagonally across the Dipper, and then about the same distance in the same direction, and find these guys up here. So one M81, I think, is the nice spiral galaxy, and that's just beautiful detail in there. This is using Jim's new RASA telescope, which we won't hear about this year, but hopefully sometime in the future, we're going to get a talk from Jim about that. And this is M82, and there's lots of stuff going on at the core of M82. And then Gary has been looking at some things using his C-star sort of between Leo and Cancer. So here's Leo, there's the Big Dipper. So now if you come in the opposite, take the pointer stars, but go in the opposite direction from the Polaris, would be up the top of the picture. And here's the head of the line. So around here, we're going to look at two pictures, NGC 2903, that galaxy, and the core of it is got a separate NGC number. And then a group of galaxies, which Gary just did last night, and didn't really get enough light to see them, but if you fiddle around with it in PowerPoint, I could sort of make them out, so I put them in. So this is 2905, so it's actually in Leo, and the other one is in Cancer, but they're almost next to each other. So this is a couple nights for 56 minutes, and you can see a nice spiral galaxy there. And Gary reprocessed that, and he used Cyril and GIMP. And then this is the one he posted today, and you can sort of see that there's, I'll show the people at home there, and there are two not very big galaxies, and here you can sort of make them out, 2804 and 2809. They're described as lenticular galaxies. You can barely see them, but after 12 minutes with the C-star, that's pretty good. And I guess you were saying that that's actually, they should be beyond what they say the C-star should be able to do, but
They're about 14, and C-star, I think, it's 11.
yeah, so 14, magnitude 14, the C-star is supposed to be 11, but Gary's starting to pick them up. So I expect we'll see those.
You can see the light pollution down the bottom.
Yeah. And we had some shots around the Cone Nebula and the Rosette Nebula, and the satellite cluster is in the center of the Rosette Nebula. So this is Gary with the C-star around the Christmas tree cluster and the Cone Nebula, although you can't really see all of it there. And there were two nights there. One was January 31st, but I think you had to have another night in there to get up to 46 minutes and some processing. And then this is the satellite cluster in the Rosette Nebula, and Gary reposted. He actually took that earlier in January, but then reprocessed and posted it after our last meeting. So look at these stars here. So there's a pair of stars there, a pair of stars there, and two bright stars here. So that's the satellite cluster. And then it just happened that Jim Johnson reprocessed his Rosette Nebula. So you can see that on the C-star, you sort of missing the edges of it. But there is that cluster, but now compared to this picture, it's upside down. So there's those two bright stars, and there's those pairs of stars. And again, Jim has used the new tools in PixInsight to go from the original, which was a few years ago, and this is what he posted a few days ago. And M78 is, here's Orion. There's a lot of action around Orion. That's sort of where a lot of the action is in the winter. And M78 is up here. It's a reflection nebula, so it's some dust that's being illuminated by a star nearby. There's also been some recent star formation there. I'm a newer astronomer. They didn't always call that the Casper the Ghost Nebula. So all these funny names seem to have appeared in Stellarium a few years ago. I don't know what's going on there, but there it is there. And yeah, I remember Casper the Ghost. I'm not quite sure I see him in there, but it's a beautiful picture. Again, with the RASA telescope, we're seeing the technology in one direction with the C star, in the other direction with the RASA. The stuff we're seeing is just amazing. And then near Alnitak, we've got the Flame Nebula. And so again, this is in Orion near the one end of the belt, and the Horsehead Nebula. And then down here, of course, our favorite M42, the Orion Nebula, the Running Man Nebula up here. And so we've got lots of images from around there. John Nugent did a beautiful shot. So there's Alnitak at the end of the Orion, the belt of Orion. There's the Flame Nebula, looking very flamey, and the Horsehead Nebula, which is a dark nebula in front of, and actually this is a Barnard number, but Chris, what number is it? Barnard 33? 33. And the background luminosity has a different number, but not a Barnard.
It's an H2 region.
Yeah. And I had to try it that in between clouds, and for me, I'm pretty happy with that. It looks like a horse. And then Robert reprocessed an M42 image from December. A little bit of funky stuff going on in there, but a lovely swirly image. I tried that one January 31st, one of our clear nights. And there's the Running Man. You can actually see him running there. And we had 2 shots at the trapezium. So this is in here is a star forming region. And if you take care not to get overexposed, you can actually see the trapezium in here. So this is one that Chris did with his 12-inch, again, January 31st, the same night. And Tim did this at Sue's observatory, and you can see the trapezium there as well. So that's a lot of fun that we're getting sort of a couple shots at these same objects. So this is an 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain, right? And we had a few people try the Crab Nebula. So here's Orion. Here's where the Crab Nebula is. There's Taurus and Auriga. So that sort of orients you. And of course, that's the remnants of a supernova that was reported mostly by Chinese observers in 1054. And so I had a shot of that January 27th. If you've been looking at the dates, they're all happening on a couple of nights in January and a little bit February. Robert did a lovely shot of it here. Lots of nice colors using his 127, whatever that is. 3, 4, is that a 5-inch?
5-inch.
Yeah.
Got that.
And Gary did a shot of it with the C star, and then did some extra processing with Cyril. And then we have Jim Stacy did he's using his sort of camera lens on a very nice camera. So he gets much wider images. So he did an image that's got lots of stuff in it. So there's the flaming, as opposed to the Flame Nebula, this is the Flaming Star Nebula. So this is Auriga. There's Orion. There's Castor and Pollux, Gemini, and Taurus, and the Pleiades over here. So that's to orient you, and Capella, the bright star. So the Flaming Star Nebula the tadpoles, and M38, which is the starfish cluster. Yeah, there it is there. And so here's the image, which has a lot of stuff going on. So there's the Flaming Star Nebula, there's the tadpole, there's the starfish cluster, and another cluster down here. So what I did with Jim's permission is I actually blew up each of these regions so you can see the more of it. You can see just how much stuff there is in that image, and the stars are just beautiful. So this is a crop to the Flaming Star Nebula. And this is the tadpoles, and I'll give you a second to find the tadpoles. So they're here. Okay, so they're being illuminated by some bright stars. You can see sort of little tails there. And there is the starfish cluster and NGC 1907 down to the right. So that's almost, there's Auriga is actually a very rich place for open clusters and that, lots of interesting things in there. And we had something that was sent in by Bernard Day, the Witch Head Nebula, which is very big and very faint, and we don't very often see it. And I think everybody was quite impressed. It's a reflection nebula, and what we're going to see is actually being illuminated by Rigel, which is a blue supergiant, and people were pretty impressed with that. So this is the Witch Head Nebula, but when you look at it, it's sort of taking up that much, I think about that much space there. So it's quite a large but very faint and diffuse nebula. Lovely, lovely image, Bernard. Everybody was pretty blown away by that. Another one of Jim Johnson's reprocesses, he went back and had a look at the Heart Nebula. So here's Cassiopeia, and to orient you, the double clusters over here. And the Heart Nebula, Heart and Soul Nebula are up in here, and their emission clusters and lots of oxygen, sulfur in there. And they're excited by radiation from an open cluster that's nearby, but I'm not sure which one it is. Maybe that one. Well, I'm not sure. Anyways, there is Jim's original image of that from actually from just a little bit. Oh, yeah, that was from a while ago, and the repost was a few days ago. And you see this, the same sort of thing. The stars look nicer, a lot more definition in it. What's that?
A lot more faint nebula in that one.
Yeah.
Much more detail.
Yeah, you can really see the dust lanes in that. So very nice, Jim. And then we had a few shots at Andromeda. So I did one. I was using two different cameras. I also got a satellite there. And I was trying to figure out white balance. This one was using an SL2, so unmodified with auto white balance. This one was using the modified Canon T3i with custom white balance. That was a bad choice, but Jim Stacy did it very nicely with his Canon lens and the Poseidon C camera. And you can just see all the dust lanes, and one's M32 and M110. I kept thinking 101, but it can't be that because that's a galaxy. Thank you. And which one's is that?
32.
Okay.
I think 32 is down in the bottom and 110 is the top one, I think.
Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
And so that's the end of the observation reports. So, Robert, do you want me to just bring this up and then you can talk through it?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll see what happens. Oh, look at that. Okay, so you take it away and I'll just move as you tell me to move.
Okay, so as you can see, the day-night cycle for February 21st, note 10 hours and 39 minutes. And every month that changes, of course, and it's just an interesting tidbit. And you can see when astronomical twilight ends and astronomical darkness begins. So that's the purpose for that table. The sun, we saw an image from Gary Diamond's Sea Star today, and looks very much like that. Had I had your image, Gary, I would have put it right there in place of the Soho one from NASA, is it? So kudos to you, Gary, on that image. That was fortuitous to get today. And beneath that, we see the planet roundup for Wednesday, February 21st, which just simply shows us the rise and set time when it crosses the meridian, which is straight overhead. Well, not exactly straight overhead, but if you drew a line in the sky from the north to the south, then that would be the highest point that the planet would cross. So you can see when that happens, and the green indicates the possibility for being observable. So it's a useful little tool there.
Okay, so Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Saturn's
Yeah.
getting pretty tough.
Yeah, Saturn's tough. That's why it's a little less screen.
Yeah.
I don't have a legend
If
there.
if it's setting at 6, I think it's almost done.
It's almost done, yeah. That's why I put it in sort of. I probably should have put it in gray. I don't know.
Okay.
The moon, let's see, 12-day old, rise at 1:10 p.m. Actually, I saw it on the horizon today as I was driving down Topsail Road. I was sort of surprised to see it. You could barely make it out, but I knew it was our friend the moon. Sets at 6:10, 92% illuminated. And I just make note that in the nighttime, it's pretty bright out with such a large moon illuminating all that snow. So both telescopic and binocular viewing is possible for our moon, especially tonight where it's clear. This month's full moon is at its farthest point from the Earth, called the micro moon vs the super moon that the media likes to call attention to. In official terms, it's said to be at its apogee, and is about 406,000 kilometers from the Earth. So long ways away, but close in astronomical terms. Comets, there's more than 3, but they are the brightest that we have at the moment. So if you're so inclined as to try to catch one of these furry critters that, you know, with a little bit of coma, then it may be possible for you to do.
Okay, Robert, Randy was going to say something.
The media is saying might be possible to see 12p during the eclipse. It might be around 4 magnitude.
Oh,
Okay.
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's up near Jupiter.
Watch for that.
Okay.
And continuing on, 3 asteroids that are the brightest right now visible from St. John's. And this month, I've changed some of the deep sky, or I've added a little bit of different take on some deep sky objects here. And it's just a little sample of what is visible. So you can look at this, and if you so desire to try for one of them, there's a little info here in this section, and I hope to expand on this in coming months. So I won't go through them individually there. You can certainly go online on our website and have a a look at that for yourself, and the accompanying website from which it comes has a wealth of information, so you can actually click on the links that are provided in this document to investigate further.
Okay, they're just there.
Uh,
Okay,
And Supernova, I was late this month putting together the document, and it says I forgot to look, and out of time.
okay, I'll hide that.
But you've already, Mike, you've already shown that in your last go around there, so we're covered. Meteor showers with the next most one coming up, shown there in yellow. And space station visible passes for February. I think the page might have gotten a bit screwy there, but there's a whole bunch, and that's just the first showings of them. So you can click on the Heavens Above site there, and you can see many more passes that we have if you want to get out and have a look at it.
Those all seem to be pretty early morning passes.
Yeah, they are, but there are a lot more. There's probably triple, maybe. I noticed there's a fairly big table. So,
Okay.
yeah. Just some notes on observing sessions. We haven't had any in a long while, but that's owing to our climate here. It's difficult to hit a clear night at first quarter. That's also on a weekend, so that's why there's a bit of a dearth of it. And I think there was a little bit of trouble with the images, the lunar images that I use and to put into the calendar here. And so last quarter is missing there, but that's okay. And so that's February, I guess. That's our 21st, our meeting, and March. Coming up, we have some possibilities for observing at around or close to the new moon. So I've put some, some possibilities in there, and we'll see if we get the sky and the roads are and it's plowed up in Butterpot, then we may very well see if we can partake of trying to get out there. It's been a long while, and I think that's probably about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert.
You're welcome.
So, I think that wraps it up. Thank you very much. Oh, Chris.
I'd just like to add one thing to the observing bit, if I might. There's a recurring nova, recurring loosely, I suppose, every 80 years. It's called T Corona Borealis. And the last time it exploded, of course, novae don't completely blow themselves to bits. They create mass, and then what's created mostly flashes off. And then the star is left, and then it accretes mass again, does it again, and then it keeps, so it's cyclical. And usually it's hundreds of years. This one is every 80 years. So it is barely possible for a single human being to see it twice. Either way, this one's been well observed. And there've been lots of papers, and one particular guy, Bradley Schaefer, I think, has stuff. Anyway, very firm predictions that it's going to blow in the next few months. It's in the prediction windows between February and August of this year. And according to the light curve, we're right in the gun is loaded, and the trigger's being pulled. So you might want, if you're up late this time of year, Corona Borealis is just to the east of Hercules. It's a summertime constellation, the Northern Crown. But when it goes, it brightens to second magnitude. It'll be the one amongst the brightest stars up there. So,
Okay,
something to pay attention to. Take a quick look at a star chart, and or have to go over with the camera, whatever have you. Familiarize yourself with what Corona Borealis looks like, and if you look up in early morning hours or whatever, and hey, there's a good star. and, something to look forward to.
Okay, thanks a lot, Chris. So, so everybody can have a look and, yeah, Randy?
We made a decision to.
Okay, so if you didn't catch that, Randy's saying, we have been providing the Eclipse glasses at the meetings. We've got one more meeting before the Eclipse. If you haven't gotten yours, get in touch with Randy and see what you can arrange. Okay, so just a reminder, and Dr. Anna O'Grady speaking at the Elizabeth Laird Public Lecture Thursday, March 14th at the Geo Center. Twists and turns while searching for strange stars. And our next meeting's March 20th. And Gary will tell us about Australia. And if we have any last questions and answers, well, questions about the eclipse, we'll see if we get answers. I guess we won't. That'll still be too early to know what the weather's going to be like, but we'll probably have a pretty good idea how much snow there's going to be, though. I think we've already got a pretty good idea how much snow there's going to be. Anyways, thank you all for coming and thanks for being online, and take care and don't hurt yourself shoveling. So, good night.
Good night.
So for the people online, I'll shut the Zoom down in a few minutes. So,
This is Scott. Thanks for letting me sit in this evening, guys.
oh, thank you. You're always welcome to join us for the public meeting, and you might want to think about joining us as a member.
I very likely will, and I got a ton of questions.
Okay, and Randy's got something to say.
No, just stay on for a second, there's another member as well.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah, I'm just gonna stay on for another few minutes here.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks for coming, Scott.
Okay, talk to you again.
Goodbye.